versus reality, and the original name that I'd come up with this, and the reason for the delay and not getting this invitation out midweek is I was not happy with the name I named this, because originally I called it the L word, liability, which I know everybody on here would be like, I don't want to see a thing of liability. That's okay. All things are good, because we're going to talk about your customer's perception, which is their reality, and we're going to talk about what your perception and what your reality is, and then of course what my and NTI's reality is. So the contractor and us are usually much the same. The homeowner is never that way. So we're going to talk about it a little bit, and just want to show you a picture of your customer there real quick. So
Hey, that looks like my grandson when he's mad.
I just thought that was funny.
Funny,
So perception versus reality. Your customer's perception is their reality, and it's up to you to change their perception, right? To make them understand what they're truly getting and what the units can and can't do. You have to be the person to resolve any conflict that they may have between what they were sold and what they got. So this is extremely important. I've hit this. It's hit me heavy this year. I have a couple of examples of what has happened in the past 6 months in my territory, and I'm sure it's happening in everybody's territory. And I just thought that this little graphic was kind of funny, where Rusty thought it was something else, but the true answer is picking your teams. Which reminds me that tonight's the kickoff for NFL, so I know that a lot of us want to be off this thing by 8:30 so we can watch the game. So because it's good old, it's Kansas City. Let's do it. So with our old coach from the Red Tomato from Philadelphia.
The Red Tomato.
So to avoid conflict during a perception versus reality moment, it's really important that you have great communication. It is extremely important you do this. It's important to be clear in what you're telling them. It's important to be concise. As trainers, we have to learn how to talk the language of what people understand. And sometimes the way we say it isn't necessarily the way you hear it. So we have to make sure that we're clear. And if we're not clear, be clearer or change what we're saying so that you can understand it or your customer can understand. Be concise, one idea at a time. Be concrete, no ambiguity, no pictures of clouds, and no, tell them exactly what they're getting. Be correct, error-free, be reliable, be coherent, be complete in everything you do, and be courteous. And sometimes that last one, being courteous, is not so good, especially if there is a problem down the road. So it's important that we keep these things in mind. So I'm going to show you 4 examples. These are just 4 out of thousands upon thousands of things I've been involved in. I try to take a broad scope of a lot of things as to what's going on out there in the boiler world. And it's important that you know how to handle conflict, because it could end badly. It could also end up good. I mean, as I'll show you here in a second. So cool. So I love this. This is a graphic I've used for years. Your quote's a bit high. Can you do it cheaper? And I like to try to explain to people that the rules of economics will never outweigh the laws of physics. Modulating and condensing boilers, though they heat a house just like an atmospheric boiler and a cast iron boiler, there is laws of physics we have to follow when we do this. Even with a cast iron boiler, there's laws of physics we have to follow. I mean, you don't want me to get into Boyle's law and Charles' law and Henry's law. I mean, this is all involved in what we do. And as a hydronic plumber, I shouldn't know all these physics, but I do, because that's what makes our world go round, right? So jobs are never lost on price. When people go in to try to do things cheaper, it doesn't always work out, but they're never lost on price. I mean, there's thousands and thousands of books on this that tell you it's never lost on price. It's always lost on confidence. So build up yourself and your company when you go in to sell a job. Explain what you're going to do, what the product will do for them, and what's included in what you're doing. I mean, you might be putting in microbubble air absorbers, new ECM circulators, low volt zone valves, scrubbing the system and getting rid of the magnetite so the boilers last as long as they can, putting in magnetic separators, putting in condensate neutralizers. You might be doing everything right, but your customer doesn't know that. And if you explain that, I can almost guarantee you that the people that you're bidding against or that are bidding against you are not doing that. So make sure you do that. You know the definition of an expert, Jason?
Definitely an expert. Somebody who knows everything.
No, wait a minute. It's anybody who's more than a mile from home and has pictures. So, so when you go in to when you go in to see your customer, have pictures and testimonials from your happy and satisfied customers. Show them your work. You should be proud of what you do. I love it when people come in and they show pictures of diamond plate and pretty lights and everything neat and clean and organized. And oh my God, I think there's a bending competition on Instagram as to who can bend the most number of pipes and make it look pretty. So do that. Take that stuff with you when you go to sell a job. Trust me, you'll get thousands and thousands of dollars more for your job compared to your competition.
Well, see, just imagine the old days, you didn't have the opportunities to take pictures of your jobs and have them online and do Facebook and all that. I remember a guy used to take in the literature, and he used to have this most expensive piece of equipment on the bottom. He put the cheapest on the top, just a cast iron beast to throw in the basement. And he'd always keep that one on the bottom. And he said, you can't afford that one. That one's too much for you. You can't afford that one. And at the end of that meeting, they were buying that more expensive boiler because they had to have that. They had that.
Yep, absolutely. So here's what they thought they were going to get because you didn't show them pictures and what they were doing. So they thought they were getting this. And these are pictures out of actual jobs I've been on. So it's kind of fun, right? So here's a picture. This is from one of our good friends up in Massachusetts, right? So, and here is what they actually got. So this is not a good thing to do, right? So make sure if you promise to show pictures that what you do is going to match what you've shown your customer.
Is that from Chris?
No. So do what you said you were going to do. Now this, if you notice here, and David, thank you for sending this picture today. It was up on my screen, so I used it. It was just convenient.
Ooh,
this is a pair of brand new Series 2 FTVNs cascaded together in a house. They replaced an ugly cast iron boiler. And this is a beautiful job. I've never seen anybody actually paint their wall white and not have black hand marks all over it. This is amazing. So special thanks to you, David Zerby, for doing this. That's Steam Specialist out of Williamsport, Pennsylvania. I do greatly appreciate the picture, and I do greatly appreciate you being here tonight too. So
hey, did you notice he used that looks nice, man.
It's all steel too.
Yeah, I like that.
Yep. So, and I'm sure David used Fernox, and I'm sure off this picture is a magnetic filter because I know what kind of work he does.
And he's got the right expansion tank too for the size boilers he has. It's amazing. That's perfect.
So anyway, perception versus reality. And I love this phone call when people go on the internet and find that I'm the regional sales manager for my territory. And they call me up and say, I have a 7-year-old boiler that hasn't worked right for the past 2 years, and I absolutely have a lemon. I want a new boiler. And the first thing I say is, well, when was the last time you had it cleaned? And this is usually what we find. So you have to explain to your customer that their boiler, when you put it in, needs annual maintenance. All boilers need annual maintenance, right? If you don't schedule time for maintenance, your equipment's going to schedule it for you. That's what the sign says. I mean, I have a new vehicle. Well, not a new vehicle. It's 4 months old now, but I've already had 2 oil changes on it. And people go, well, why'd you do that? Because I have 20,000 miles on it already. I should have 3 by now. But it came with 1 and it came with 6,000 miles. So, what the heck? 2's good. So, but we all take care of our cars and we don't worry about it, right? But we never think about our boilers, especially somebody switching from an atmospheric boiler over to a condensing boiler. Now, if you go to an oil-fired house, they're used to having annual maintenance, to have annual, and Jason knows this, annual cleaning on oil has to be. If you don't, you're absolutely screwed. So,
Steve, you just said something that's so true. If you were to put people worry more about their vehicles that more people can see, that their neighbors can see. If you were able to put their boiler outside that all the neighbors could see, they'd have the best money could buy. They'll spend $30,000-$40,000 on a vehicle that sits out in the rain, gets pounded. But when you tell them they got to pay $7,000 or $10,000 for a new boiler, they look at you like you have 7 heads. Come on now.
By the way, Bill Mackey just said, we should put these stickers on the front of all of our boilers. Bill, we don't have enough room, but I will get them made up. I can go to Sticker Mule, get these things made up, and send them out.
Bill, Bill, we're
we'll
running out of room for stickers, man. I
just,
mean, half of the side panel's gone.
and free beer still tomorrow. So anyway, on we go.
At Steve's house. At Steve's house.
So we as contractors need to advise our customers regarding annual service of all boilers. Service contracts, if you're not used to this, and I was just talking to a contractor today who says, yeah, we're in a little bit of slow time, but we're between heating and air conditioning, and we're kind of slow. And I thought, well, why don't you have service contracts? They have something to do this time of year. So, people say, well, I don't have any money. I don't have any time to set this up. And Jason will love this. Well, I've always told people this. When you install a boiler, you should go to your phone. You should put the date that you installed it. You should put it in repeat every year because that's their birthday for their boiler. And then go to the dollar store, buy a box of 200 for $3 or $5. You can buy a box of 100 birthday cards. Write a nice little note to them saying, hey, Mrs. Jones, your TRX 150 combi is due for maintenance. Please call us to schedule. Put a little happy birthday boiler to it, whatever, and send it out to them. Cost you 37 cents plus a 5 cents, but plus a 10-cent card, and you got yourself people coming in and printing money to the office.
And now you're out there doing a service annual maintenance, and you're going out and you're seeing the igniters getting a little wear and tear. You're seeing that the the sensor may have a little carbon buildup, so you have to replace those two items now at $400. That's an upsell. Ooh.
Now the cool thing is that with our new software built into our dashboards we give you, if you hook up the boilers to Wi-Fi, it will actually predict when something's going to go wrong, or it will also remind you 12 months from now that boiler needs to be serviced, so you know when to send stuff.
Yes.
That's a service, boys and girls. That's built into your dashboards for your boilers. All our boilers, the TFTN, the FTVN, and the TRX are all Wi-Fi right out of the box. Plug it up to the Wi-Fi, link it onto your dashboard, register it in, and you get reminders on everything.
And don't get worried if the wrench flashing. Don't call us if the wrench flashing because it needs servicing.
You can do anything from your computer anywhere in the world, from your phone, your laptop, your desktop, your tablet. You can reset and change anything on a boiler except for unlock it on a hard reset on flame. That you have to go out on. So anyway, enough on that. So perception versus reality. And this is one of the things I absolutely love is the salesmen go out, or we go out and we talk to people and we say, you really should put a combi in. It's a space saver, blah, 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 blah. And we never look at what they're using it for. We never look to see what's in the house. We never look to see if they have whirlpools. Guys, as heating guys, we're allowed to go anywhere in the house. Just tell them you have to count off the baseboard or something. Who knows? You can go anywhere, see the whole house. So they want this. And what you didn't know is they had a sit tub. And that's a funny picture of a sit tub. And they're not getting the water to fill an 80-gallon tub at 10 gallon a minute. And that's absolutely correct. It won't. So we have to address this when we talk to people. We have to explain that it's unlimited hot water at what gallon per minute. So 110 will give you 3 gallon a minute at 70-degree rise. A 150 will give you 4 gallon a minute at 70-degree rise, and a 199 will give you 5 gallon a minute at 70-degree rise. So this is what you get, but what the customer hears is they're going to have unlimited hot water. They didn't even hear about the GPM crap, right? So you got to make sure you address this with them. You just have to make sure you do it. But what I strongly suggest is maybe you should offer this customer good, better, and best, because that way they might not go for just the good. They might go for the better. They might go for the best, because what you're trying to convince them of is what is the best investment of their money to be able to satisfy what they need, especially people who have a tank style water heater used to having hot water come out immediately, not fire the boiler, not have to wait an extra 20 seconds, and have that water right there. So maybe you should offer them this when you go out to sell. You should offer them good, which is a nice combi. Offer them better, an FTVN and an S20W with a quick hookup kit. Or maybe you should offer them best or all three, the TFTN with a nice S60 or S80 indirect, and make it right and make it satisfy their needs. That way,
that's perfect. That's a perfect setup right there. Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. Because you can schedule it. You can now schedule that TFTN. You can schedule that domestic tank to come on at a certain time. That's probably the best out of all of them. That's the best of the best. Hey, there was a movie, Best of the Best. Remember that?
I don't disagree, which is why I look at it, right? So cool. Anyway, next up, case in point. Now, these are actual cases I'm going through, and I've taken the names away to protect the innocent and anybody who may or may not be there. Please, and if this is a class, I've had people raise their hand and say, that was me. You don't get that opportunity because this isn't an open classroom. Nobody can see your hand. You can say it was me and nobody will know. You can send it to us in a text message going, ha, ha, can't believe that you did this. I don't care. But customer calls and Stacy has insufficient water, right? So far, so good. He's not getting enough hot water. It's a 3-year-old boiler. And now for the last 6 months, his contractor has been out there almost every month to try to correct it. And going back and looking at my case studies underneath that serial number, I only saw 1 or 2 calls, and they said what they were trying to do. And this is after 2.5 years, and they didn't ask the right questions. There was still insufficient hot water after he was there. The customer actually wanted a bigger boiler because he thought that would do better, right? So he filed a lawsuit. We supplied the correct replacement part. The part was installed, everything was fine, and the lawsuit was dropped. Go figure that one. So let's see what happened here. Let's see when we got involved, when the contractor finally called and talked to me, or one of my tech guys, and in this case, it was me. What was the difference that happened? I finally asked the question, did it ever satisfy what he's doing, and did he change anything? Meaning, he said he was trying to fill a bathtub, of which my tech department said, well, that's 10 gallon a minute. It's not going to happen. Not on a 150. And that wasn't the case. I said, did he change from showers to tub? And the answer was no. He's always taking a bathtub. I said, did it work originally? Absolutely. It worked for 2.5 years. So the contractor checked 3 things for me. 3 things. And when he did that, I sent him a new plate heat exchanger and it was done. And I'm going to tell you this, folks, on a TRX boiler, phenomenal helicoil, single coil heat exchanger. But I will tell you this, if you don't remediate that water, because that whole thing flexes like this, it breaks all the shit that collects off that heat exchanger. And if it's a combi and the domestic's calling, when that breaks off, it goes right to the plate heat exchanger on the boiler side, which reduces the flow from the boiler to the plate heat exchanger, reducing domestic hot water. And you can tell that by just touching the frickin' pipes on the boiler to see one's hot and one's not getting flow. Oh my God. So all you have to do is check things. All I did, I sent him a $50 easy replace, 2 screws, you don't do anything else, 2 screws, take them out, take the heat exchanger out the back, bring it out the boiler, put the new one in, screw it back on, you're done. Then take the old plate heat exchanger, get a couple cork holes with holes in the center, blow out the boiler side, and you have a spare for later when it happens again. But the truth of that is that if he had remediated the water and put a boiler mag or a boiler magnetic filter in, he wouldn't have had any of these problems.
That's right.
But it was also
something at the system. He wouldn't right at the system connection. He wouldn't have no problems. And the other thing is, I hope that he listened to you by servicing that coil and put some valves in, so in the future he can go in and clean and bounce the coil, clean the coil back and forth with vinegar or some kind of
side of doing that, buddy.
Just like we did with the domestic plate up with the Compass up in New England, we put clean outs that you can take cleaner like off.
But you weren't listening. This was boiler side blockage, not domestic side blockage.
He's done there. He's done there.
So now, I've left a lot of time for this on purpose.
You should give out stickers.
You win that one, but you don't win them all. You really don't. I've had multiple conversations with multiple contractors who have had homeowners from hell, and they said, I should have trusted my instincts and just priced this job at 10 times what I would normally get and walked away, or not return the call. And that's fine. People have gotten instincts with people that they know they shouldn't, and they do, and it comes back to haunt them. It's okay not to work for everybody. It's okay to divorce a customer. It's okay to trust your instincts. You're allowed to walk away. People say, but I need the money. I have to have the income. Not when it's going to cost you down the long run. You're better off just walking away. When in trouble, when either instincts or something's going wrong on the job, when you're in trouble, call the experts. Never be afraid to call us. That's why we put our numbers at the front of every one of these webinars. Please make sure you call us. Make sure you follow
business cards.
So I have to put a little disclaimer in here. I am definitely not a lawyer. I'm a plumber. I'm a master plumber by trade. You guys know it. That's why I'm good in the field. That's where it is. This is not a law class about what I'm about to go through. I've been called on, which they call a subpoena, to be an expert witness in court cases. Because why? I'm a boiler expert. Cool. To become a professional instructor, which I am, I hold multiple certifications as an instructor. I was taught Legalese 101, which is really what do you do in conflict? What happens when the perception is off-railed and you don't know what to do? This is where it ends up. When in doubt, hire a lawyer. Never think you're going to go it alone. Trust me. Don't think you're going to walk into a courtroom that the plaintiff has, the homeowner or the customer has a lawyer. Don't think you're going to go in there and be your own guy. Hire a lawyer. It's worth every penny of it. And if you win, they pay for your lawyer. Get it written in. Anyway, you cannot resolve perceptions. If you can't resolve perceptions, you may end up in court. And trust me on that. I started this with good communication. Stay in front of the customer. Make sure that they listen to you. Make sure you can still get in. Make sure you can follow through. If the communication stops and things off rail, things jump off the rails, you're going to have a problem. So here's a scenario. Homeowner calls our head office and gets a hold of the VPs. The homeowner states the boiler was installed 3 years ago and is not big enough to heat the home. It's not supplying sufficient amounts of hot water. He wants a bigger boiler. It's leaking around the flue. It's not vented correctly. He claims that the venting is a fire hazard. He's going to die. Oh my God. It's not piped correctly. It's not suitable for a single zone. It's not hooked up primary, secondary. There's no condensate neutralizer. There's boiler winds at startup. He's going to sue the installing contractor, and he must have an NTI representative look at the installation. Now, let me just say this. He actually had a letter in hand. That stated all of that by a contractor in the same area, by a competing contractor. Well, I want you to know that I will not go on a job without you unless I'm directed by my head office that I have to do it. I've only done that once in 15 years. And that was just recently. Just so you're aware, I won't go out without you. The homeowner had a letter of inspection from another contractor. They sent a copy of that to the VP. I did contact the installing contractor before I went to the site. Why? Because I had the serial number. I looked up the cases. I looked up what had happened. I looked how long had it been since they've been there. The boiler is actually 5 years old and it had never been serviced for over 3 years. So
one strike.
I went out and inspected it. And here we go. Oh, by the way, I met the homeowner who was extremely pleasant to me at the time. Isn't that nice? He was nice. He invited me to his house. He let me walk around, take pictures. He let me look at everything. He let me measure everything off. He was the sweetest guy in the world because, well, he was expecting something different from me. Here's my full report, or the beginning of my full report, which is 3 pages long that I sent to him. The house is 2,000 square feet. It's 98 feet of baseboard. 98 feet, if you multiply it by 600, which is your average output for residential baseboard, it comes to 58,800 BTUs. Does the boiler sound too small so far? Don't think so. It's a 150, right? That's a TRX 150. A 1-inch supply and return that went out and branched into 2 3/4 that were not balanced at the time, which needed to be balanced.
Yeah.
And the original guy who went out and looked at it said, there's no primary, secondary. Now watch this. What's in the round circle? That's a TX 150, and that's the low loss header we provide.
We gave that to them. Yep.
It's primary, secondary. Yeah.
It's all right there.
So factory supplied low loss header was installed. Now I gave the guy the benefit of the doubt. I knew there was a series.
It was behind the gas line. It was behind the gas line. He freaking missed it. I see it.
Now the original circulator was a B&G 100. I knew that because of the amount of oil on the floor. You know, it was where the original boiler sat, and right underneath where the original circulator was, there was a big oil spot. And I said to him, was it a red circulator about that big? And he said, yeah. I said, that was a B&G 100. I said, okay, so I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. A 007 does not replace a B&G 100. A 0010 will. The curves are much more similar. But what do we do? Because we've always installed 007s. We don't think about So I said, okay, I'll requiesce, and I will say the circulator should be upgraded to a 0010. That's one thing. The vent piece, the 6-inch CPVC starter, that should say CPVC starter piece that we gave you was not installed, as you can see below in the bottom left-hand corner down here. The CPVC starter piece was not used. And the reason we use that is because PVC at high temperature will actually roll in and close off the exhaust. So that's why we use that CPVC piece. It's not a fire hazard. Although if you run PVC up too high, it can be a fire hazard. But you can see in the picture, the PVC hasn't even started turning color. So this is 5 years down the road. There's no problem with that PVC. So that needs to be addressed. There's no neutralizer. Should have a condensate neutralizer put on. They can tear that pump out, that condensate pump, and they can drop in a condensate pump with a neutralizer built in. They're all set, right? So that takes care of that. That's easy. So poll question number one.
Where are they pumping the water at?
Jason, you want to run to run the poll question, please?
Yeah, where they run the water at? I mean, goddamn, you don't need to neutralize if you're running into a freaking slop sink.
It's not.
Or running outside to piss it outside.
Going to a slop sink, it should be neutralized.
Well, I mean, I meant to say outside.
Poll question number one, Jason.
I'm getting it. All right, poll question number one. Here we go. Launching that bad boy. Who actually used? What do you actually use for venting? Oh, close this little thing. Move that away. With modulating condensing boilers, PVC, CPVC, polypropylene, or stainless steel. Ain't nobody using stainless steel.
I just want to know what the answer, Jason, is.
That's freaking extensivism. 50% says CPVC. Oh, whoa. We had 18% says CPVC. 36% said polypropylene.
Cool.
We got some number fluctuation here. Hold on. We got fluctuation. All right. We got a little bit of fluctuation. We got people who are guessing and, ready to pull the trigger. All right. So now I think we can settle here. Yeah. Okay. We're going to settle here. So 43% said PVC. 14% said CPVC. And 43% said polypropylene. And the winner of 0 is stainless steel.
Cool. That's awesome. So anyway, so in the state that this was in, the state allows PVC to be venting. Everyone in this particular state vents in PVC. It's not that I have not been trying to tell everybody in this state to go to polypropylene, which I have been, and so is the polypropylene manufacturers. This particular state used to use ABS, which they outlawed, thank God, and they went to PVC and allowed PVC by law. The vent pipe is in the garage going through, it's 65 feet inside the garage if you include the elbows. That's insulated. Now, we did allow at one time insulation to go on the vent pipes to keep it warm, but the problem is that NFPA 54 said you can't use insulation anymore about 3 years ago. So when this was installed 5 years ago, insulation was fine. 3 years ago, they said you can't do that anymore. So it was right there. The vent pipe's leaking at either joint or at the flashing, so that needs to be addressed. The flue gases, and if you look at that picture, you can see that the flue gases just drift right up here and right into the gable vent. At least that's what the homeowner said. I could not see it while I was there, but the boiler was not running, so it didn't matter. But he said it goes right through. So,
now, how the hell does he know that? Has he got a sniffer up there in the gable?
Dude, if you met this homeowner, he looks at everything anyway. The PVC is run through the unheated garage, could be relocated totally to solve the problems. Now you can see an unused chimney that used to be used for the oil-fired boiler that was in there. And they could pull a polypropylene flexible liner down that and run it over to the boiler. That would solve every problem that's on this screen. Every problem that's on this screen. There's $500 done between labor and everything being done. No more leaks, patch the roof, blah, 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 everything done. No more venting issues. So that could be done, right? So now.
It's not like those liners haven't been out for freaking 20 years.
Yep. Poll question number 2, if you would, Jason.
All right. Poll question number 2. All right. Poll question number 2. Okay. Launching this bad boy. I mean, how many showers will a I get ready to say TX 150C handle? 1, 2, 3, or 4?
How many licks does it take to get to the bottom of your lollipop, boys and girls?
Now that's I don't know.
Hmm.
It's kind of a tricky question.
And Bill Mackey, that wasn't anything I was putting into there. I'm not telling you whether flow restrictors are removed or not.
Well,
Most
Bill's onto something there. You know, you say how so these are 4 standard shower heads. You could say, you know, see now you can add other things to make a handle 4 shower heads too. I'm just throwing that out there. All right, let's see what we got here. 15% say 1, 54% say 2, 20. We had a little fluctuation in my numbers. I got to go back. 14% say 1, 57% say 2, 21% say 3, and 7% say 4. So I would say 4.
So the reality of it is a
You know
TX
why I would say 4?
150 combi will easily walk away with 2 standard shower heads at 2.5 gallon a minute if the boiler is set up correctly. It can get away with 3 if you're using flow restrictors. It could do 4 if you use the 1 gallon a minute restrictors that my father wanted us to all use, which I wouldn't use, but it could. But the rule of thumb
Throw a
is
buffer tank.
it'll walk away with 2, right, without adding anything else to it. So now, the complaint was insufficient hot water. He wants a larger boiler. I get there, and the mixing valve was set to 110 degrees, and the boiler was set at 127. Now, at this point, you're using 100% hot water to satisfy the shower, which is not going to happen. If we can increase the temperature of the shower water, increase that through a valve, and he has to mix hot water into it, now all of a sudden, we're using 2 gallon a minute over here on the 150 and a half a gallon a minute of cold, and now it can satisfy 2 hours easily all day long, right? So the reason it was set down so low is because the person who was in this house prior was a 90-year-old woman who didn't know not to use just hot water and was scalding herself. So they were asked to set it down low. So I explained to the customer, all you have to do is have the contractor set it up higher, right? All you have to do is set the boiler, the mixing valve at 120, turn the boiler up to 135 domestic hot water, and it will be fine. I don't know what the problem is, and the guy wouldn't let anybody in to fix it, so I can't help that.
So the problem was fine when the boiler was installed. That's because she turned it down. They caused their own problem.
He wasn't living there, so she turned it down. It was perfectly fine for her. She lived very happily with the boiler the way it was for 3 years before he got that, before he moved in. So
she jinxed him.
She's dead. So anyway, all right, so that's that one. Now let's look at his next complaint, whining noise. Now you'll love this. In the actual report from the other contractor, it said that it's normal for an NTI boiler to whine. And I will say, no, it is not. I cannot believe that anybody would actually put that in writing ever. But I know he's being paid by the homeowner, so he's going to write whatever the homeowner wanted. It is not normal for a boiler to whine. But the boiler hasn't been serviced in over 3 years. 3 years, probably 4, that has never been serviced. So the first thing to do for the whining noise is, 1, get a service done. Get the combustion chamber cleaned, set up the fucking set up the combustion at high and low, right? Do a high set, low set. And then if it still whines, then we replace the blower. But you got to start at base 0 by cleaning the boiler first and getting it back into working operation correctly.
Starting for air.
So it's in need of a good tune-up. If the noise persists, we look at putting a new blower in. Big deal. I mean, we're talking an hour worth of work to clean the boiler. And if it doesn't satisfy the whining noise after you set the combustion at high and low, which does require a combustion analyzer, which some of you guys don't use, but you got to learn to do it. Because
you got to,
standard.
Steve, you got to, Uncle Steve, you got to go back to number 2. If you would have cleaned it, you wouldn't have had a bad fit.
That's correct, Jason.
If you feel me, number 2 is right.
Anyway, so where does this all stand today? This is the interesting point of my day. Where does it all stand? The homeowner is looking for anyone. He'll pay anyone to come in and back him up as far as his complaints are concerned. I wrote a lovely letter that stated the things that needed to be done. We're looking at under $3,000 worth of, even if you've got the most expensive guy, under $3,000 worth of work to be done. But until he finds somebody that will actually agree with him, it's not going to happen. He will not allow and has not allowed the contractor to come back into his house for over 4 years. This is not our problem. This is something he has a problem with. We have no idea why. I don't care. Be very, 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 very careful if you're ever called to write a report about a piece of equipment, because you better make sure you're 100% correct, and because you will be called as a witness. So don't even, you'll be subpoenaed in a rat's ass minute. So please, if it ever gets to this point and somebody asks you to write up a deficiency report on something, you better make sure that you're right, because I'm hoping that the person who wrote the first report and I are on opposite sides of the bench, because I'm going to have a heyday. Cool. So what's a plaintiff? A plaintiff is the person who brings a suit to court, basically the one who starts the cases, and we can say starts the trouble, right? So unfortunately, this will go to court. Unfortunately, he would not listen to a state mandated mediator to come in and discuss this and try to solve things between the contractor and himself. And we're not talking just the boiler, we're talking all the mechanicals in the house are apparently wrong from one of the top contractors in the area that I work in. And phenomenal person. I'd have him work in my own house, and he wouldn't even listen to the mediator.
So the boiler's bad, the plumbing's bad, the air conditioner's bad, everything's bad.
Exactly. The court will ask, of course, for expert witnesses. The court will look at local code. The court will look at the INO manual, RTFM first, boys and girls. The court will look at industry standards,
Factory manual.
and it's up to the plaintiff to prove that you've done wrong. Now, you got all these standards to look at, and we know that in this area, the standard is everybody's installing PVC on every condensing boiler. Doesn't make it right. It means it's an industry standard. I love everybody using polypropylene, but this PVC is straight white. It hasn't even hit temperature. For God's sake, it's amazing. So in a legal proceeding, there's important rules known as burdens of proof and evidentiary standards. This is what the plaintiff has to prove. He has to have substantial evidence. He has to have a preponderance of evidence, which is what we get into civil cases, right? Civil lawsuits. Clear and convincing evidence, a higher standard used in some cases or a lot of cases. And then if this were to go criminal, which I don't think it ever would, beyond a reasonable doubt has to be there. So
Unless you lie in court.
So this is all legalese. This is all legal crap that none of us want to deal with, but we have to, because it's going to happen eventually. In today's day and age, it's going to happen. The contractor defendant will be held to defend his case, right? Is or was there negligence? Stupidity doesn't count. You can't go and say, I didn't know. That's negligence. Did you follow the standard practices? What's the local codes? What's the manufacturer standards? What's a local industry standard? Be prepared for everything. For God's sake, don't blow it off and go, I'm just going to show up and see what happens. Don't do that. Be prepared for this. Don't show up to think that they're going to think that your word's gospel, because you've already been called a butthead. So they're not going to believe you. You better have some experts with you. Think of it as Alice's Restaurant. So if you guys have ever watched Alice's Restaurant, and you know the pictures and the words and blah, 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 make sure you show up with pictures of the job. Make sure you have copies of the local codes in your state and region. Make sure you have copies of the installation manual of the time you put it in, so that you know, like things like that installation were code when it was done, and have testimonials from other contractors as far as the local practices that you're taking and that you're doing, right? So let's hope none of this ends up in court, but today it's nearly impossible. Have you ever watched the ads in the morning on the 6 o'clock news? Oh my God. So every morning I start my day between 5 and 6 o'clock, and I always have the news on.
Well, you lost me right there. You lost me right about there.
Well, yeah, between the 5 and 6 o'clock. Have you ever watched the 10 o'clock news at night, Jason, or the 11 o'clock news? Okay, good. That doesn't matter.
Oh, I can read that off to you word by word.
But if I see one more Call Rand ad, I'd rather watch a political shit, because Call Rand, because I will get you where the insurance company is going to give you $10,000, I will get you millions. And I just hate that. But this is what people see. This is what people are expecting. This guy would not address the offer from the contractor to pay to have whatever fixed, gave him a number. He said, no way, I want this much money, which was 10 times the money he was offering. Actually, it was 20 times more than money he was offering, which is amazing. Proper steps to avoid lawsuits. Proper steps to avoid lawsuits. Follow the rule books. Follow the local code. Follow the INO manual. Make sure you know the industry standards. Avoid the escalation by good communication. Make sure that you get your ass there in person. Talking to someone who's upset on the phone doesn't always work. I will say that I've had people call me who are screaming, and I let them scream for 4 or 5 minutes, whatever long it takes. And when they're all done, I try to say something, and they say, well, why haven't you talked? I said, when you're done screaming, then I'll work on the solution with you. But until you give me the chance to talk, I can't help you with a solution. And then, of course, you always go off yelling again. And then I say, oh, okay. And I shut up again. And, part of my job is to listen. And I sit there and listen to them. And when they're all done, we try to resolve it. Sometimes it works. Use the manufacturer's tech department to back you up. Now, here's the problem in this region. Our tech department's in Canada. In Canada, you can only vent in CPVC or polypropylene. You cannot use PVC. So, of course, when he calls the tech department, they have no idea where this joker lives. They said, well, you got to vent in CPVC, which is not correct for the region. So it doesn't matter, right? So it's a moot point. Use your local supplier, your rep, and your manufacturer. We all can be involved. The rep can be involved, your local manufacturer's rep, your supplier has TSAs, technical service advisors. Of course, you got people like me and Jason and Ted available. And do due diligence. Please do not walk into these applications thinking that somehow it's just going to go away. Or worse yet, ignore it and don't go, because if you don't go to court when you've been summoned, you lose. I don't know if you know that. You don't show up, you lose. Pretty easy. So in conclusion, know when to say no. Know when to walk away. Know when to hold them. Know when to fold them. Know when to walk away. Some customers will never, ever, ever be pleased. Trust me, never be pleased. Sometimes it's not worth the money. Maybe it's time to suggest a new contractor. And in fact, the contractor who's involved in this job has suggested other contractors and was willing to pay them to go out there and do what needs to be done. Go according to a book that I love called Hug Your Haters by Jay Baer. Hug Your Haters is one of the most phenomenal short reads I've done. They have an audiobooks. They have it on Amazon. You can buy it in hardcover, soft cover, used. I saw it for as little as $3 used. I would use a credit on Amazon. And if you guys aren't using your trucks when you're driving, if you're not listening to audiobooks or podcasts on our industry and on shit to help yourself, if you're only listening to music, I'm going to encourage you to change your habits and listen to books. I drive between 40 and 50,000 miles a year. I read between 24 and 40 books a year, and it helps. Hug Your Haters, I bought in softback from Jay Baer. I listened to him talk one day. I had him sign the book. I absolutely love this book. It talks all about conflict. He says, walk away and know when to not take on conflict. He says, there'll be a time when there's absolutely no satisfying a customer. He refers to this on Instagram or on social media. He says, if you address something on a conflict to a customer on social media, and they come back to you with more argument, and you come back to them with more solution, and they come back with one more argument, it's time to cut it off. It's time to cut it off. All they're looking for is an argument and to follow through on this. Just let them go. Let them tell you, oh, we're going to take you to social media. We're going to bad to you, blah, 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 blah. Tough shit. Everybody goes there. If you go to any manufacturer, you log into any manufacturer, you Google any competition, you even Google NTI, you will get nothing but bad reviews because nobody ever writes a good review. For God's sake, seriously? I can't believe it. People actually follow this shit. But I will say that if given the opportunity, you can prove it wrong. And when all else fails, you just smile and walk the hell away. You've done your best. Pretty damn easy.
Thanks for watching the video today. If you'd like to check out more videos, see the link below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for all the future updates. And also check us out on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram.